If you would like to hear Night Dreams Talk Radio on your local radio station, let them know. Tell them to check out www.nightdreamstalkradio.com. And thank you.
Night Dreams Talk Radio, After Dark, wants to give a big shout out to all the truckers that listen to our show.
And a big shout out all to the truckers out there, and a big shout out to Earl Grey, who has done that bumper song we just played. I tell you, it is a lovely song. A little bit about Earl. He's an investigator for MUFON. I have been doing with MUFON for quite a few years. I tell you what, though, he plays a mean guitar, and he has a great voice. Well, let's get Colleen on the line and give her a call, and let's get talking about the Lizzie Borden house. What do you think, James?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. She can fill in those little facts, like was she married and all those goodies, too.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, let's get on. Well, hi, Colleen. This is Gary at Night Dreams Talk Radio. After Dark, you're on the air live right now.
Hello, everyone.
Well, how's your day?
My day was pretty good. How about yours?
Oh, it's always good. I wait all day just to get on the air and do what I'm doing. I tell you, though,
I'm very excited to be here. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's fine. Well, why don't you tell the listeners, Colleen, a little bit about yourself?
My name is Colleen Foley, and I was born and raised in Fall River, Massachusetts, where the Lizzie Borden Bed and Breakfast Museum is, and the house is historic for several reasons, not the least of which is that there were two very gruesome murders committed there in 1892, and I worked as a tour guide in the house for about 5 years, and it's pretty haunted.
I bet it is. I mean, now, what type of things was going on in that place?
Oh, gosh. There were so many types of things. We would get a lot of guests who would come in for our overnight tours, would report things like hearing walking above their heads when they knew nobody was up there, doors shaking and rattling kind of things. We had a psychic who used to come in, and she would do these little seances, and she would talk to Andrew, and this one door in the house would constantly, it would just shake. That door would be closed, and it would just be like shaking when she was talking to him. And as soon as he moved on, it would stop.
Interesting. And this, how often would that go on?
It happened, I heard about it 3 or 4 times from her. I heard about it happening 3 or 4 times from her. But the thing you have to remember is there are some times when that house is really just a house. Nothing happens. But when it does, it gets pretty active, especially around the time of Lizzie's birthday, Halloween, and on August 4th, on the day of the murders, they do this big reenactment of the murder day, and the house gets extremely active after that. We have a carpeted set of stairs that leads from the second floor up to the third floor. Now, when the Bordens were living there, those stairs were not carpeted. They were just bare wood stairs. And when I would do overnight tours, I would sleep in the house overnight if there was a room available, and I usually slept in one of the upstairs rooms because I didn't want to disturb the guests after quiet hours. And I would hear, and other people have told me about this, the sound of boots coming up those stairs on wood.
Ooh, I'd be scared. You know, I won't say the word, but I would be scared a lot.
You know something, I was, the first couple of times it happened, I'm not going to lie, I was a little disconcerted. Especially because one time I actually got up and I stood right at the top of the stairs and I could hear these footsteps coming right up the stairs towards me. And there was nothing there. But I heard it.
Did you have the door locked, I hope?
The house door?
No, the bedroom door where you were sleeping in.
No. Nah.
You're brave. Now,
no. After a few years of it, you kind of get used to it.
No, I haven't got used to my wife snoring in 43 years. I don't think I could get used to hearing footsteps coming up anywhere near where I am at night. Now, can you tell the listeners out there, there's a lot of young listeners besides us older people. Tell us, what can you tell us about Lizzie?
About Lizzie herself?
Oh, yeah.
She was, before the murders, which occurred on August 4th in 1892, she was known to be a very strong-willed young woman. She was 32 at the time of the murders. She was very strong-willed. She and her father didn't get along too well, but they absolutely adored each other, if that makes sense. People kind of, she was thought to be a little bit strange all along, even before the murders occurred. She didn't have a lot of friends. Andrew was an extremely frugal individual. He had a lot of wealth for the time, but he was very frugal with it. And so Lizzie couldn't buy new dresses the way, other people as wealthy as her family were doing. They lived in a very kind of, not like a ghetto part of town, but they didn't live up on the hill where all the rich folks lived. They lived closer to Main Street where Andrew's businesses were, because he liked to be able to just walk back and forth to his businesses. After the murders, she became very, very private. She bought a house that she shared with her sister for a while, and then her sister moved off, and Lizzie just kind of lived a really quiet life. The kids who met her, the young kids who met her after the murders, after she moved into this other house, always said that she was very kind to them. She would give them cookies, and she spoke very nicely to them as long as nobody came onto her property. She would occasionally let them come in to feed the birds, but then she'd, scurry them away.
Interesting. So she was a recluse.
She was very quiet. She was very quiet after the murders. I don't think she wanted to be, before the murders occurred, she wanted to be out in society with her peers, and she just couldn't be because of her father's frugality.
Now, what type of businesses, do you know what type of businesses her father had?
I do, actually. Andrew started off as a cabinet maker, and then he became a funeral director. There were some movies that portray him as a mortician. That's not what he did. He simply directed the funerals. He provided the casket. He provided chairs for people to sit on and did that kind of thing. From there, where he really made his money was in banking and real estate. He was, he had holdings in several local textile mills and some banking houses. He served as the president of the Union Savings Bank, and he was the director of several Fall River corporations. So he amassed a lot of wealth.
It's funny. Some people that gain a lot of wealth can be the stingiest persons and thrift-minded.
Yes.
I had a relative like that. They were multi-millionaires, but you know what? They bought all their stuff in thrift stores. I mean, they watched every penny. In fact, the last 15 years of their lives together. They hated each other so much, but they wouldn't get a divorce for one reason. They would have to divide their property. Yeah, they didn't want to do that.
No. I think part of the reason that Andrew was so frugal is because his family, prior to him being born, had been quite wealthy for quite some time. The Bordens were a big name in Fall River, and it didn't just start with Andrew and these murders. And they were quite wealthy. Andrew's father wasn't very financially acute. He didn't have a lot of financial acumen, and so he kind of lost a lot of their money. And he wound up being a tin peddler on the street. So Andrew probably was very, very determined to get that back. And I think he held a lot of fear once he started to get that wealth back. He just didn't want to let go of it.
Oh, it sounds like it. It really does. And I could see how maybe it affected Liz at a young age. She wanted things. She wanted to be, meet people, do things. Mm-hmm. And who knows, was he a strict father to the point where she couldn't, even have boyfriends or anything at any age?
No. As far as we know, she never had a boyfriend. She never married. Neither one of the sisters did. She had an older sister named Emma. Neither one of them ever married. They wouldn't really be going out to parties because they didn't have dresses to wear. They couldn't buy the nice dresses to go to these parties. The one thing that Andrew did do for Lizzie was about 2 years prior to the murder, he did send her on a grand tour of Europe. And she was gone for about 6 weeks. And when she came back, it almost sounds from everything that I've read that she just really got more and more upset with the strict, kind of things that were going on money-wise in the house. They didn't have a bathroom. They didn't have running water. They didn't have electricity. They could have. And they didn't have a phone.
Oh, wow. So they had all this wealth. And yes. They lived basically oh, wow. I think that could...
Poor people.
Yeah, I wonder how the mother took all that.
Lizzie's natural mother, Andrew's first wife, passed away when Lizzie was about 2 years old. Her older sister, Emma, I think, was 12. And so she didn't, I don't know what was going on with her, but his second wife, Abby Durfee Gray Borden, who was the other person who was murdered on that day, didn't really seem to have any problems with it. He gave her X amount of money and she ran the house on it. And the girls really didn't care much for her. They didn't like her very much. I think they thought that she was trying to usurp them, and get, their inheritance.
Now, was she a younger wife or a wife roughly the age of the husband?
No, as a matter of fact, she was considered a spinster by the time they got married. She was 35, I think. And at that age, if you pass 30 and you haven't got prospects yet, everybody starts to think, oh, well, she's just never getting married. And that's in a Victorian society, that's the kind of thing that just wasn't done. You never didn't get married.
Well, I know my grandmother, was always telling me, it was like, if you weren't married by the time you were 17 or 18, you were classified, an old maid.
Yeah. And Abby was in her 30s when she married Andrew. So it was very much, I think, for both of them, a marriage of convenience. He needed someone to care for his children. He needed a mother for his children. And she needed a husband.
Interesting.
So, yeah. And it was really fairly quick. He walked her home from church one day, and I don't think it took very long before they were married.
Wow. Of course, maybe she knew how much money she had. That could have been, I hate to say it, but, a lot of people that back then, and maybe nowadays too, I mean, if somebody who was wealthy, they figure, oh, gee, I'm pretty much set. So that did speed things up a little bit sometimes.
Yeah, but in those days, she absolutely would have known. It was no secret that most of the boys